concern was written all over his face. As he stared through the doorway of the house, he couldn't help but feel a sharp chill. Was it the night's events or was it the cool air? It was hard to tell. His night had started off, well, as a wonderful night, together with his best friend celebrating the Passover that commemorated God's miraculous saving of his people from the bondage in the land of Egypt. He had shared a meal together, been ministered to, and then they had gone out just like every night into the garden to pray and to share. It's true that tonight his master seemed a little more concerned than normal. He had been talking about strange things lately, how he was going to die, or the temple would be destroyed and rebuilt in 3 days. None of it really made much sense. He wished that he wouldn't talk that way. Surely he wasn't going to die. Surely he was going to bring about all the changes that the Messiah was supposed to bring about. But, well, tonight's events were beginning to change things. If you had asked him just 24 hours before, he would have been certain that Jesus was going to change this world, drive out Rome, establish the new kingdom of Israel. But now all that certainty was, well, shattered. People around the fire had been noticing him a little bit, but he couldn't help but draw in closer. That chill was just so great. What were they talking about in there? What was the shouts and the loud voices? Why were they striking Jesus? He had seen his master do amazing things. Heal the sick, bring sight to the blind. Weeks before, he heard the voice of his master speak into the darkness of a grave, and a close friend had walked out, resurrected from the dead. He had witnessed his master saying, "Peace, be still," to the mighty winds and waves on the Sea of Galilee, and they had listened. He himself had walked with his master on those same waters, and yet now his master seemed so small, so weak, so broken. What could all this mean? Why wasn't he doing something? Why wasn't he speaking up? Why were they whipping him? Why were they talking about crucifixion? It's about that time a young girl comes up and begins to inquire. She stares through the smoke, and in the flicker of the flame, she saw some features in his face, and she could tell by the tone of his voice he wasn't a regular in Jerusalem. She said, You're one of his disciples." And fear ran cold through his body. Surely he knew him. Surely he had walked with him. But in that moment, he swore that he had never seen the man before. No, he didn't know who that was. He was just happened to be out late at night and had seen a crowd at Caiaphas's house, wondered what was going on, and stopped by to warm himself up in a fire. That girl wasn't buying it. In that moment, he lifted his eyes and looked into the doorway of that house, and his gaze met another gaze. A gaze that was full of sorrow and disappointment. A gaze of one who had been abandoned by every one of his worldly friends. And even the one who said, "I'll never leave you. I will die for you, Jesus," had now just sworn with an oath that he had never known him. At that moment, a cock crows somewhere in the city of Jerusalem, and at that moment, Peter recognizes that he had failed, and he runs from that campfire out into the darkness, broken. It's easy for us to be critical of Peter. But the truth is that you and I have denied our Lord as well. In a few hours, A crown of thorns would be thrust into Jesus' head. In a few hours, the whip would break across his back time and time again. In a few hours, he would stand before Herod and Pontius Pilate in a mock trial. And in a few hours, his hands and feet would be stretched forth. Nails would be driven through his wrists and through his feet. He would be hung on a cross as a common criminal. The creator of the universe, dying for his creation, for his friends who abandoned him, for you and me. We call today Good Friday. It's good because on this day our salvation was purchased, our brokenness was restored, our relationship was mended. But today was not a good day for everybody. Today was a day of sorrow and of brokenness for Jesus. And so I know that we often on a Good Friday will boil crawfish or barbecue or do whatever it is that we do. We have a way of turning things into our holiday. But I hope you find some time today to remember what it is that happened 2,000 years ago on this day. That the one who would never leave us died in our place, so that someday when this life is over, we can live forever with him. Sure, we weren't at the campfire, but we've denied Jesus. And he loved us anyway. His blood pays a price for my sin and yours. Let's never forget that. Let's celebrate that.